like a cat, it was a present from my brother. I read a lot of books, but I couldn't see between the lines. I'll have another cup of coffee if you don't mind.
And here we are. Now here we are. Here we are. Good morning, peoples. Happy to see everyone here this morning.
Did anybody win a mug?
Faces. I don't think anybody won a mug today. Randy was close, but we were itching. Like, it's 9:03 when we're talking, and he bet 9:03:30, which is probably, it was so close. I mean, it's a wire. It's a wire thing, but I think we went at 9:02.
So I want to hit people to a very special guest we're going to have on Friday's Superhero Review with Chicago Lou. The guy who plays tuba in my Jazz Fest band every year for the last 15 years is a guy named David Silverman, who lives out in Los Angeles, and he's a great tuba player. He's played with the Preservation Jazz Hall Band. He's legit. But his real job is the lead animator for The Simpsons television show, and he directed The Simpsons movie. And he wrote to me that he's been watching Another Cup of Coffee and heard us talking about Loki and wanted us to check out the short that he did where Bart meets Loki. And I said, sure, would you come on the show and talk about it? And he said, absolutely. So David Silverman is going to be on with Chicago Lou, who is thrilled about the thing, on Friday to talk about his spoof on the Loki series as we wrap up our own conversation about the Loki series. And it should be fun.
It should be a lot of fun. Yeah, when Paul first told me this, I was like, wait a second, did you call him or did he call you talking about this?
Yeah, he was watching the show with Coleman, but Dave's a great guy. He comes down to Jazz Fest every year. He sits in not just with me, but with lots of people. With like I said, Pres Hall and Matt Perrine has him up, and he just loves New Orleans music, and goes to Burning Man and everything like that, and has a couple of different bands out in Los Angeles while still being the head lead animator for The Simpsons and all that. So it should be a gas. He's a great guy.
I can't wait. I mean, I'm excited about it myself. I've been getting all excited about my little stuff, and here's a guy who actually does it and makes money for it.
Well, you could ask him about animation. There you go.
I'm sure that I will be asking him about animation, but we'll let him tell us, obviously, a story first, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see this Simpson Bart meets Loki video.
I think it's a Disney thing, right?
Is it? I don't know.
I sent y'all the poster, and it had a Disney logo.
I saw the poster. Yeah.
I'll ask him where we access it.
Yeah, or if it's ready to be accessed yet, or whatever. Maybe they're saving it, or
sure
maybe it's been out.
You wouldn't have asked us,
I guess you're right. So I have to. Last Friday, I was talking about one of these writers. It could have been Wednesday. I don't know. We talk about these writers, but I had the name wrong. It's a guy named Alex Garland who writes all these movies that I like. It turns out this guy Alex Garland wrote. Gosh, now I've done forgotten. But anyway, he wrote like Ex Machina, Dread. There was just a list of Annihilation. Anyway, all these movies that I've seen that I thought were really clever, smart movies. And there's the only movie of his, it turns out I have not seen, is a movie called Never Let You Go, or Never Let Me Go, which is based off a Ishiguro book of the same title. And I was just curious and then I started looking this stuff up, and I'm like, oh my God, this book's supposed to be one of the top 100 books ever written in the 20th century or whatever, last 100 years, I think is what it was. Anyway, have you read any Ishiguro?
Are you making this up as you go along?
No, I swear to God. Have you read Ishiguro? No, I guess not. No. Okay. Well, it's supposed to be a lovely, poignant book that, so now I'm going to read it. But for some reason, I figured that you'd be like, yeah, of course, everybody's read that. What are you talking about?
No. I was a big reader when I was younger, and I'm more selective in my reading time these days, especially rehabbing the voice.
Right.
It's that's sort of been my main focus, which is odd because in the actual rehab of the voice, you're supposed to take the focus off the problem. But
maybe you could read and speak aloud to yourself, while you're reading.
Throughout my life, I've always believed you got to try as hard as possible at whatever you do. Right. And that's not good advice.
You don't think so? You think that's Somebody
You
messed up
know.
when they told you that. You think?
Yeah. Well, as my voice teacher in New York, Katie Agresta, used to say, sing where you can sing, and that will promote healing and confidence. And as the great Susan Cowsill once told me, Paul, singing is 90% confidence.
Yeah, I would say 90% confidence and maybe 90% having an idea of what you're singing helps a little bit too
And
sometimes.
as the great John Boutte said to me when I was whining to him about my hard times, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, start all over again.
Right. He's just looking at you going, just wanting to slap you probably, going, Paul, come on. This isn't the
Like he
same.
hasn't.
So I come in this morning. I'm early and I'm just checking things out, and Paul is playing piano. I was like, "What are you?" He's playing, and I thought it was a hallucination. I thought I had somehow triggered some recording or something because I'm like, "Are you here?" It was like 8 in the morning. Like, are you really here doing this? And anyway,
That's
I got
how
to
I
hear.
warm up for the show. And now that this wonderful fellow that I met that has worked with dystonia people before has got me singing again and talking again. And it's like for 3 years, I would say for 3 years, I was terrified at the thought of singing. Like even longer because it started to go and this weird thing was going on and I couldn't put my finger on what was going on. And then it got to where I didn't want to go see other friends perform because I was afraid they might ask me to get up and sing. And then I didn't want to go to dinner with people because it was happening when I was talking. And it just became a cycle of anxiety. And now I've been taking lessons for a few weeks with this guy who has, as I said, it's worked with other dystonia people. And I look forward to getting home and singing, look forward. Somebody walks in, I go, hey, check this out, like I used to.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun as a part of me restored. It's lovely.
You know what I loved watching this morning as you were playing those tunes? It wasn't like you were having to, you play a chord, jung, you sing a line, and then you have to find and finger the next chord and then do it. No, it felt very natural. I'm like, look at him moving around, chords. It feels like music.
Well, the pandemic's been going on for a while, and I put the guitar down, and Allison bought this piano at an estate sale, and I got a few lessons from Bill Malchow, and then really Real Books shows you where to put your fingers. And if you have a good memory, which I do, then, and I know a lot of songs already, like I knew the lyrics and the melodies. So it's a matter of literally going like, oh, that can't be the right chord. That sounds so ugly. And then you play it in the context of the song and you begin to understand the nuance of a really wonderful jazz ballad,
Right.
I'm a rock guy, so I'm looking for the broad strokes. And in the context of, and when you play it in the context, it's perfect. But if you're just learning it like I am, and you're putting your fingers and you go, oof, that's what the chord is. Oof, who would do that to their song? And then you play it with the chord before it and the chord after it, and you go, oh my God, who wouldn't want to do that if they could think of it?
Well, and the other lovely thing about piano is you can start to play these pieces of voicings that guitar is not really friendly to.
Well, it changes some of the songs too. I have to be honest, like I've been playing Jet Black and Jella since 1987 or 8, and I've played it all kinds of ways with all kinds of bands, and every band and every bass player especially gives it a different feel. But I've been playing it on piano as more of like a power rock ballad, and it's been kind of fun, because that's a whole other feel for it,
Mm-hmm.
So
It sounded nice when I was listening to it just then. When you played it earlier, it sounded nice.
Thanks.
Look at him go! Look at him go! And that's a lovely piano shot. You go there. Do you guys fog there today? It looks good. Did you get some fog going?
No, there's the windows are heavily misted because of the humidity.
Ah, yeah. It makes a nice. It reminds me.
I'm in soft focus.
It's soft focus, right? When they used to put Vaseline on the lenses for those actresses, or some kind of thing like that.
Older actresses and actors to
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, give them that soft focus. But when I first heard it, I was like, they really put Vaseline on the lens? Like, yeah, they put petroleum jelly on the lenses just to soften it up, and then you see
You'd be
it.
surprised the places they used to put jelly.
I probably wouldn't, sadly. I'd probably wouldn't at all.
As a family. So not only do we have David Silverman on Friday, but one of my favorite songwriters anywhere, and one of my favorite people to play music with and to play my songs with, Alex McMurray, is going to come and be our guest on Wednesday morning.
So he said yes.
Yes. And he has a show on Facebook on Tuesdays. He is Mr. Tuesday Night, and his wonderful wife Courtney is a great artist. And so I assume that she can help construct the set, because the set is very cool.
Yes.
Very satiny curtain with his name and lights, very like Kramer's talk show on Seinfeld. And so I credit her with it when I talk about it, but I'm going to have to ask him on Wednesday if Courtney helped him assemble it or if it was his own design.
Because I was going to ask you, is he going to come to us from that set, from that iconic set of his now?
Well, I'm going to have to write to him and say that we might need him on the iconic set.
I'll give him an extra wide screen. I'll make us really thin and give him an extra wide screen so we can...
If it's at all possible, we would love to have the iconic set as his background.
Well, the funny part is that by the time we cut his head out of it, he's probably going to be like, well, thanks for having me bring the iconic set there, Paul, since all you can see is my head. And I'm sure he would take notice of that for sure. He'd be like, yeah, thanks a lot, big guy.
We have an act that we call the Smothered Brothers because, it's funny. I didn't know Alec. He was sort of getting really popular in New Orleans in the early 90s when Cowboy Mouth was taking me away from New Orleans 250 days a year through the mid-90s. And so really I didn't meet him until after Katrina. I knew friends that ran in circles with him, but we just ran in different circles, And so after I left Cowboy Mouth, I was recording Exit to Mystery Street at the Music Farm, and he lived next door to the Music Farm on Rampart up St. Claude, way the hell uptown. I mean, up by the tracks, by Congress in the Bywater. And so I was recording this song, Ride with the Devil, with Dave Perner from Soul Asylum producing. And Dave wanted a guitar solo, and this was before I'd had lessons from John Rankin, and I wasn't used to playing solos. And I said, hey, man, He said, this song kind of needs a ripping guitar solo. And I said, well, I don't really do ripping guitar solos. He goes, well, I know a guy who does. So he goes next door and he asks Alex if he'll come and play. And Alex was working in his garden. So he comes in and he's got a smudge of mud on his forehead and he's sweating. He's got a white T-shirt on that's got mud on it. And his arms are covered in calamine lotion because his garden had poison ivy in it and he had gotten poison ivy. And so I'm just looking at this sort of wild looking dude that walks in and he plugs in without much he doesn't say hello. He's not like the friendliest guy in the world. He just sort of says, hey, plugs in. And Dave plays a track and he just it was unbelievable watching him. It was like watching a guy slay a fire-breathing dragon. His body was contorted and notes were coming out that were just wild and you saw flames shooting from the guitar. And then Dave goes, that was really good, man. Can I have another one for safety? And Alex is like, yeah, sure, man. Plays again, crazy, like the guitar bent in half or something before my eyes. And then Dave goes, that was great, man. Thanks. I'll take care of you later. And he goes, okay. And looks at me and goes, thanks a lot, man. I don't get to play rock and roll too often. Unplugs and goes back to gardening. And so I don't really know him, But somewhere, I need a guitar player. And then I said, well, that guy who's on the record. And somebody goes, yeah, he's really good. So I start using him, and he's beyond really good. He's great. He's chameleon-like. In fact, we were playing a gig down the French Quarter at Hermes Bar, and somebody asked for Time in the Bottle by Jim Croce, and I thought, okay, surely he won't know this. And I'll play the song, because I know tons of songs, and he plays it as if it were off the record. And I look at him afterwards and go, that was incredible. You sounded like Maury Mulhausen. He goes, I really never played the song before, to be honest. He's that tasteful and has that good an ear. And so we started playing together, and I would start to tell a joke or say an old movie line, and he would finish it, or complete the joke. And it was like, wow, the timing was incredible. And so after 6 months, we were doing a duo, calling it the Smothered Brothers, and people were laughing and having fun. And this guy comes up to me after the show and says, so you and Alex must be friends for 20 years, right? Because y'all have this thing on stage. And I go, no, we actually have never spoken off stage. And we hadn't. Because off stage, I'd go to him and I'd hand him the money. I'd say, thanks for coming. He'd go, thanks for the gig. And I'll go see you next time. And he'd go, great. And that was it. And I joked with him that we were like the old cartoon Sam and Ralph, which he was too young to remember because he's 10 years younger than me. But when I was young, there was a cartoon, Sam and Ralph. Sam was the sheepdog and Ralph was the wolf. And so they'd punch in friendly, morning Ralph, morning Sam, and then they'd try and beat each other up all day. At the end of the day, night Ralph, night Sam. So they never really spoke. They just worked together. And to this day, you know, I call him Ralph and he calls me Sammy. But after about 6 months of playing together, I think maybe one night at DBA, his wife Courtney showed up. And it was rare. She didn't really come to gigs because she worked nights and it was hard for her to get out. Now they have kids, even harder. And my second ex-wife didn't ever come to gigs. So it was like Courtney would say, "Oh, Alex's wife's here. That's pretty cool." So we finished the gig and we're at the bar and I go to pay him, leave as always. And I see her give him the like tiny wife elbow in the back. And he goes, "Oh, yeah, man. You want to get a beer?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. We don't do that, but let's get a beer." So we get a beer and there's a game on and we're both kind of watching the game and we're looking at the band setting up and we're drinking our beers and neither of us really says anything. And I finished my beer and he finished his and I go, "So we good?" And he goes, "Yeah, we're good." And she just threw up her hands like these two guys.
Well, you want
So
to.
we really didn't talk off stage for like, you know, I don't know, for like 8 months or something. Finally, one of us said something that was almost like a conversation, but we're both equally curmudgeonly from get-go. And since there was no really warm-up period, it was just gigs. We just stayed that way, I think.
Funny thing,
Like
is,
I'm not going to like having him on the show. It's going to be upsetting.
we in the '90s, he was in a band called the Royal Finger Bowl, which is kind of where I first started hearing about him. Was in Royal Finger Bowl, and I helped with the second record. I helped Keith Keller with the mixes on the second record, and at that point, I mean, I heard some of these songs, and then I had already heard his first record because my Keith Keller was a good friend of mine. He'd played me because, "Dude, you got to check this guy out." And I'm listening to his lyrics, and I was like, "My God, this guy is a real fucking writer. This guy can. This is great stuff."
Yeah, oh yeah.
It wasn't just hooks and stuff like that. It hooked me, but at the same time, the lyrics were so much deeper, and he had a sense of humor.
Well,
Some of them had a. Go ahead.
Alex has 2 degrees from Tulane, one in philosophy and one in English. I always have told him that he's completely prepared for life in the 16th century.
Right. Well, I remember telling you about him back then because I kept wanting to pull him into one of the projects that we were doing. And it's so funny. I mean, it just goes to show people kind of have to find things on their own because you were completely not into it. You weren't into it just wasn't a good time for you to be dealing with someone else.
I was so tired of hearing the name Alex McMurray. This young punk came to town while I was stuck on the road with Cowboy Mouth and claimed the title of the best songwriter in town. My friend Tim Cohen wanted to hang out with him. He didn't want to hang out with me anymore. You were talking about him. I was hearing from every angle. I was drowning in freaking Alex McMurray.
Right. And then
There
I
was
find
no way
out
I was going to work with him.
I come back. And even before I came back, I started hearing about you guys playing gigs everywhere. It's like, oh, yeah, now he's buddies with Alex McMurray. I suggest Alex McMurray. He's like, fuck. I don't know
Mike, it had to be my idea.
Right.
You know?
Right. You had to come around to it on your own. And it's funny the way that you met him.
I have zero memory of you ever having suggested it.
I'm sure.
It was my idea.
Right. You blocked it out of your memory anyway. You were like, "Alex, who?"
Well, it didn't happen. Is why I blocked it.
There's no blocking. It just didn't even occur. But yeah, I do remember that. Now, I even tried to, I do remember even going, like, "Check this out," doing some lyrics, and you just looked at me with a blank stare like, "Yeah, okay." I'm like,
well,
right,
I mean, there's a chance I was incredibly stoned at the time, too. So I
there was that chance. So you weren't listening anyway. You're like, Mike's talking again. I don't know if he's saying
I just
anything.
looked up and went, yeah, you said something. I know.
Right, exactly. It was kind of a, exactly. I agree.
I mean,
I agree.
If we were either on tour or in the studio and it was the 90s, then there's a really great chance that
Right.
it was that stoned and it was like, oh, look at that. It's Mike. Mike's talking to me. I wish I could hear what was coming out of his mouth. Yeah, no, it's cool, man. Because you weren't uncool. I'm sure I said it's cool.
Yeah, no, you were cool. You just, I could tell that you just, none of it, either it didn't register or you didn't really care. Like,
No, I have no memory of it, so I didn't
you
at
just
all.
weren't there. You were off in your own
No.
world. So I'm fine. I'm glad that he's going to be on the show. And he got back to you pretty quick. I was expecting him to go, "What
But
do you
you know,
want?"
he has a child.
Yeah, that's
He
true.
has a young son. And so, as you might recall from the days when your children were young children wake up early. And that means the parents wake up early that are the parents of the young children. This is what I've learned from my friends that have had children.
Yes, I do remember the days of having to wake up early. But it's funny because when they become teenagers, they never wake up. It's like then you're like knocking on the door at 1 in the afternoon, going, "Are you gonna get out? Are you gonna get up today, or what's the deal?"
I have to see where Max is in his development. Like I heard a lot of stories when he was young. You know, he was like, he used to have this song called Num 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 Charlie, which they called the Binky the Num Num in their house. And so Num Num Charlie likes to chew the thing all day or whatever. And it was adorable. It could be a children's song. But he talked about how, in typical Alex fashion, he was like, you know, before I had kids, I used to have all day to work on songs, you know. And now I got a 12-month-old and I get about 8 seconds a day to work on songs when I'm not watching, you know. So it was during this 8 seconds where I picked up the guitar and I was trying to work on this song. And my son looked over at me and he said, "Hey, Dad, I see what you're trying to do, but you're not really getting it, are you? You want to, you know, give me the guitar." I go, "Well, if you think you can do better," and I hand him the guitar. And like I say, I think he said he was 15 months. He's 15 months old, so he could barely get his arm around the guitar, but he managed to get his little fat arms around the guitar, and he's chording, and he comes up with this song, Num Num Charlie. So then he plays a song that's really catchy and funny, and of course the story was adorable. So at the end of the song, I go, "Hey, Alex, man, that was a really good song, you know, and great story, but you're not worried that your son's going to sue you?" And he goes, "Oh, he already threatened me." And I said, "Really?" You know, he wants his publishing. He goes, "Yeah, he threatened me. He said, I'm going to get my lawyers." And I said, "Well, son, your lawyers are my lawyers. I win."
Allie wrote a song when she was little. Go ahead, sorry.
No. What was her song?
Nobody's Girl, because we would me
How
and
old
Kim
was
would
she?
always tease. She was like 2, 3. She's a 3, and so she had a melody and the whole thing. So we recorded it and the whole thing. I got it somewhere. We dug it up not long ago. I played it for her, and she was like, "I don't have any recollection," but
There's
she was.
a Bonorama song. Oh, you know, I have my nephew Sam, who comes in to play percussion at my Jazz Fest gig. When he was like 5 years old, he went out to my mom's garage. He's like 40 or something now. My mom's garage in the back beach, we're practicing. And Vance DeGeneres was in the band, Steve Walters, Fred LeBlanc, John Herbert. And we go, we're trying to be friendly. He's a little kid. What do you want to hear? And "I want to hear Breaking My Back Up Front for You, Baby." We didn't have that song. And so we was like, "Is it this?" And he's, "No, Breaking My Back Up Front for You, Baby." We played like 4 songs, and he went inside pissed off at us because we didn't know Breaking My Back Up Front for You, Baby. So about 10 years later, I wrote a song called Breaking My Back Up Front for You, Baby. I didn't give him songwriting credit, though, because, you know.
He's gonna sue you. He's probably gonna sue you now.
One day he may sue me.
Although, you know, kids don't seem to remember any of that stuff. I played it for her, and then she goes, "I still don't remember this, but thanks, Dad,
No,
for
of course
recording it."
No.
But me and Kimmy would tease her and like say, you know, "You're my girl, no, you're my girl." And so she wrote "Nobody's Girl." I'm nobody's girl.
Well, you know, Craig Klein, I guess, I don't know, many years ago, several, whenever the Bonorama record came out that had the song "I Don't Want to Play Guitar," he called me up and said, "Hey, I got some lyrics, and I was wondering if you'd help me turn it into a song." And I said, "Yeah." So he had a kind of cool minor key thing going, you know, funky groove going, and I started thinking of a melody that would go with it. And he had the lyrics written out on like little napkins, and they were kind of scrawly for a dude, you know. And I go, "Hey, man, what, you know, in a bar or something, and you wrote the lyrics?" He goes, "Oh, no, my daughter wrote these. I found them in her room when I was cleaning up. You know, I've been trying to get her to take guitar lessons." She was like 12 years old at the time. And she got frustrated with the guitar lessons, and she wrote, "Daddy, I don't want to play guitar." And all the lyrics that we wrote, you know, I forget how the song goes, but we wrote this really lovely, funky song. And it was, you know, "You can't make me, I won't let you, I don't want to play guitar." It was just great little kid stuff, but it was perfect, you know,
Right.
especially for a trombone player to write.
Right. A lot of fun. A lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark's kid's got a good band, right? Mullen's kid.
Well,
Is that
Mark's
who-
kid's not a kid anymore. You know,
It's true.
Mark's
He's 24 years, 25. How old is he?
I think he just turned 21 or 22, but he's a rock star in the making, that kid. He's got the moves, he's got the looks, he's, you know, and he's got the drive.
He's got the
I mean,
drive.
it's easy to see he's going to be he's definitely going to go for the brass ring.
Me and Mark talked, I guess, about 6 months ago or something. We were just mentioning how different the kids are because I've got three of them, and every one of them is so different, like personality wise. It's you
Oh
start
yeah,
to
I'll
go,
bet. Yeah.
how do they all part of me, right? I mean, because they're each of them very distinct. And he was talking about the same thing. I mean, one of them's into music and plays the horn and does what his dad and wants to do all of that, and the other one's a jock. No interest in music,
Really?
no interest in any of that stuff. Just
Wow.
he likes sports. He's a tough, he's just a different guy. It's just
Funny.
I know, and so you just go, wow, kids are just you just never know.
Yeah.
Any of our
Yeah.
listeners who have kids know. I mean, you see little moments, you see little things. Like, yeah, I can see that in me, for better or worse. Sometimes, right? You're like, oh yeah, she got that. So sorry, she got that, or whatever. But but it is
And
interesting,
you can't get mad at her because you see yourself.
right? You're like, yeah, I understand that. I understand what you're feeling, and
Not right.
but it is what it is. Sorry about
Yeah.
that. Sorry if I
Sorry
gave you
about
that. I'm so sorry. I apologize.
Oh
So,
well.
but yeah,
Yeah.
my two couldn't be more different. But they love each other, and that's the wonderful thing. I mean, I see all these families that can't quite figure it out. Even some of my own cousins and things like that. The one thing I feel like was good is everybody's close in our family. We've always been close, and even now we're still close. So
That's nice.
it
That's
is.
nice.
It is. I know some people have issues where there's a black sheep. I don't think we have a black sheep in ours, so it's
I
kind of
kind of
nice.
drifted away from mine in my rock and roll years, but Allison, when we got together a few years ago, we had known each other when we were 19, and she knew all my family, and she liked them all, and she was like, "Yeah, we got to go and see, this one and that one," and she reconnected me to my family. She knew my mom, and my brother Andrew, who passed away, he taught me to play guitar.
See,
So I really got
Andrew,
in
you were
touch
kind
with.
of close to, though. I mean, Andrew was just. I remember Andrew around all the time in the early Cowboy Month days. I mean, and he was a good bit older than you, right? I mean,
He was 10 years older than me.
that is that all? He seemed a little older than that, to be honest, at the time.
Yeah, he had lived a lot. He died
Mhm.
young, but he had traveled and lived a lot and studied a lot, and he was a special guy.
And then, of course, Johnny, another special
Yeah,
one. He's and
yeah.
those
Well,
two.
Johnny's my youngest brother, and I've looked up to him my whole life.
Right. Well, he's got his shit together. It's the craziest thing, right? I mean, you're like,
He
this
did when
guy,
we were young. I
right?
think I told the story right about us mowing lawns. I think
I
I
don't
might have
think
told it
the
on the show before. Well, when we were kids, we moved from New Orleans, the Irish Channel, where there is no grass. My mom got a government house. They called them 2020 houses because if you could pay $20,000, the government would pay $20,000, and you could go live by the runway in Kenner. So I was 12 and he was, 9 or 10, and we were gonna. My brother Andrew, who taught me to play guitar, had the cool English racer. He was a hippie, and he had the newest thing in America. It wasn't any fat Schwinn bike, It was a cool English racer, skinny tires. And boy, we wanted one, a Tour de France. We wanted a Tour de France. And there was a bicycle shop 3 blocks away on Williams Boulevard where we would move into these government houses. And so Johnny and I decided we were going to mow lawns all summer and save up for these bicycles. They cost whatever, $120, $150 or whatever. And so, I mean, I was 12 years old and I had enough self awareness to know that money would never last in my hands. They would disappear somehow because I just spend until I don't have anymore. So I said, Johnny, my younger brother, 10 years old, would you, hold my money? And no matter what I say, don't give it back to me until the end of summer so we can get our bikes. And sure enough, like 3 weeks in, I wanted a candy bar or something. I go to him like, hey man, I need some of that money I gave. And he's like, nope, I got it hidden. And I'd be like, that's my money, man. You have to give it to me. I'm like 12 years old, demanding my money. He's like, nope, you made me promise not to give it to you, and I'm not giving it. And I would get so furious with him, but he saved my money. And at the end of summer, we both bought our Tour de France English racing bike. So
Hey, so
there
you
you go.
needed him, and so it's funny because Allie would have been the one, Lindsay would have been the one to spend it all, and Allie would have been the one to go. No, you said. She amazes me right now with her ethic. I mean, like sometimes, I'll be like, hey, you want to come watch this with me? She's like, nah, I got studying to do and stuff like that. And I'm like, you can't take out an hour to come watch a movie with your dad? She goes, Dad, I have got work to do. You don't understand. This is a lot of work. And so I'm like, oh my God. I'm talking to Kim, like, whose child is this? I mean, when I was young, my dad asked that, yeah, Dad, let's do this. I felt like in my head, it gave me I was able to rationalize, yeah, well, Dad pulled me out of my studies or whatever like that. She's the one, oh my God, she would freak out if we were late. Like if we were going to be like 10 minutes, 15 minutes before we had to go, like we'd make a time, all right, we're going to leave at 9:30, 9:15, she's driving me crazy. You ready to go? You ready to go? We're getting ready to go, right? And I'm like, yeah, I got to do. She goes, you always have something to do before we go.
Boy, you always late, too. You are always late. I sympathize with you.
So I'm not as late anymore. She trained me. She retrained me. I'm mostly on time these days. I think
I'll be
50-50.
curious to see that happen in real time because I've done many things with you and not one of them were on time ever.
Chris Finney's the same way, and I'm waiting to see if his kid's one of those ones who just retrains him to be more on time. And time is fluid for me. I always feel like time. What is it? You can't do anything about it. Once it's gone, it's
I
gone.
don't believe in time.
I don't believe in time. Time, fate, none of it. Let's just keep moving. Keep moving forward.
Well, then, you just jump on the time continuum with Loki and you just go back and fix shit, man.
So how many, you and Alex have written songs together? Or, I mean, I can imagine that's a fun thing. Right. So getting together to write songs, y'all can talk about that. You can't talk about life, but you'll talk about songs. And
Oh, he asked if I said we talk about anything. He said, baseball?
and you're like, football?
Yeah. Oh, we'll talk baseball. I know a little baseball.
Yeah? I don't know any.
Not much.
I know who Babe Ruth was and Hank Aaron.
I know the proper things to yell at a pitcher to rattle him because my friend Dickie Wentz taught me. He was a pitcher. And, you yell at a pitcher. You say, hey, your sister's got a better move with a man on first. That kind of stuff.
Gotcha. So you were good at heckling.
Uh-huh.
Heckling, thank you.
Or if there's a pitcher and his number's 21. Hey, 21, does your husband a pitcher too?
Right, and see that joke's you can't even use that one anymore, right? I mean, now somebody could.
Well, in the pros, I mean, as far as I know, there aren't really any female pitchers yet.
No,
I'm sure there will be one day. I mean, why can't there be a woman who can throw the ball 90 miles an hour? I'm sure there is.
What about the girl who kicks field goals? Didn't she go to college with a field goal? Didn't she get a scholarship?
I thought they kind of patronized her a little bit. I mean, I know a lot of girls that play rugby and stuff, and they're tough. I mean, if they say they want to get out there and kick, then they want to get out there and kick. And if they think they can block, they probably can. Mm-hmm. I know some tough athletes, and some doctor friends of mine, a doctor friend of mine that's been, a rugby player all her life. And she's probably, maybe in her late 40s now, and she's had the same surgeries professional athletes have, knee surgeries and stuff. But she was tough, man. I wouldn't have gone up against her in football. So if somebody says they want to kick, I don't think the woman needs to be patronized. I think that if she wants an athlete, part of it's blocking. And I think there's pads and stuff.
Right. Plus, kickers don't usually get hit anyway, right?
I'm going to say, how many tough kickers do you know, really?
Right.
I mean, we had Thomas Morstead. We were lucky. He was 6'4". Most kickers are, smaller than me and are no more interested in getting hit than I am.
Right. Remember Russell Erxleben running for his life?
Oh, yeah, and we laughed at him, but who wouldn't have, Mike?
Right. Oh no, these guys on the defense are killers. I think they're like really killers. Like some of them, they would have been murdering. They'd have worked for if they weren't playing football, they'd have worked for the mob as enforcers.
Well, there's people that have been trained to be aggressive, and they're big people, and they will hurt you.
And they will hurt you.
I think I might have told this. Have I told the story about me being on the football team in high school?
No.
It was not a good idea. I weighed 125 pounds soaking wet. I was a tiny kid. I was short. I weighed 125 pounds. But me and my friend Mario, who was shorter than me and smaller than me, loved the game of football. So we got for the team. And we even let us go out on one kickoff on the JV squad. Let the guys go out there, won't get hurt. So we decide, stupidly, we're going to skip practice. And we skip practice. And even more stupidly, we decide we're going to be in front of the school talking to girls and having a Coke. sitting on the mailbox, as cocky as can be, as a team bus rolls by, and everybody sees us. Now, to compound our stupidity, we decide we're going to go to practice the next day. Our high school was Redemptorist. It was in the St. Thomas Housing Project. So the bus rode through the housing project to get to Annunciation Playground where we practiced. The coach goes, Cruz, Sanchez up front. He lines a team up in front of a single file each and just tells them, start hitting them. And the guys just start running at us one by one, hitting us. And we're trying to block them. Well, the third guy who hit me was our running back. And he hit me so hard that I literally rolled over backwards. And by the time I stood up, our defensive tackle, Gerald Haynes, who was a big kid, like 280 maybe, he hit me so hard with his forearms, he lifted me off the ground. I remember my arms and legs flying and just landed on my ass and bouncing. And when I finished bouncing, I got up and I turned around and I walked through the St. Thomas Housing Projects back to the school, to the locker room, took off my pads, never tried to play football again. I knew that was not the sport for me.
So you've heard of the book Blind Side, right? Obviously there was a movie of the same name. So the guy who wrote that, Michael Lewis, I think. Anyway, I read it, huh?
Ohar, right?
No. It was roughly about that.
So some of it was fabricated.
No, it's true. He bases everything on data. But
okay.
I read the book, and the book opens up talking about Lawrence Taylor and how in the 90s, I guess that was when Lawrence Taylor was, right? 90s when Giants won the Super Bowl. Was it the 80s? So Lawrence Taylor came to the NFL and sort of changed things. He was so aggressive and he was a monster, right? He ended the careers of a lot of really great quarterbacks.
Oh yeah,
just tackling them. Joe Montana, Theismann. I think there's a long list. Anyway, he was so aggressive, and what it was is Joe Gibbs used to coach the Washington Redskins, who were also in the same conference as the New York Giants, and so they had to face him twice a year. And so he's trying to figure out anything he can to just slow this guy down. He was just, they couldn't even get off a damn play. I mean, Lawrence Taylor was just a one-man defense almost. He was
he was a beast.
He was a beast. So they decided to start training. Joe Gibbs finds himself this huge tackle who was fast. So that became the thing. You need to find a big guy who's super fast, and it became the blindside tackle, the left tackle, to keep Lawrence Taylor. It was all about Lawrence Taylor. And they started, in order to pull these guys in, it turns out that left tackle position was making as much as running backs and quarterbacks and stuff like that. He was the one guy in the line who made that kind of money because his job was to protect the quarterback from guys like Lawrence Taylor. And
crazy.
So that's where this whole book kind of starts in that, and then he goes and starts to tell a story of
it's a nice bit of football history, Mikey.
Yeah, from the Baltimore Ravens. It's a really good book. By the way, his books are all great. I don't know if you've read any of them, but I've read a bunch of them. They're all based off data. It reminds me of Malcolm Gladwell. I don't know if you've ever read Malcolm Gladwell. But
CLT didn't pull up. If he got a shot at a quarterback, he took it. Oh, I remember the great Saints linebacker, Ricky Jackson. He goes, he had gotten a sack on Joe Montana. And normally in his young days, Ricky would have really leveled the guy too. But he just kind of wrapped him up and put him down. And the reporter said, hey, you went kind of soft on Montana there. He goes, well, I'm getting old now. In my younger days, I'd have caused him some pain. But I just kind of laid him down real nice.
I made him down real nice and slow. The idea that, I don't know how many times Drew got hit last year, but it wasn't a ton. But I think it was that one tackle where the guy broke 12 of his ribs?
That was a serious hit. Yeah.
It was a good hit. But, I mean, just think of that. Somebody hits you so hard with pads on that they break 12 of your ribs. 12 ribs of somebody who works out for a living. And, I don't know.
What are you reading?
I was just seeing I saw Sandy had said something about, she was telling how many children you guys had. And then suddenly it made me wonder, what the heck were they talking about without us over there in the chat? Suddenly I'm like, what conversation they got going on? Right.
I know. Nothing to do with you and I. We're just two old guys talking, and then there's a bunch of people that have met each other and now have a little chat.
Have a little chat. I mean, the same thing happens at a bar. Think about it. People get together, they meet, they have a couple drinks while they're waiting for you to go on, and
I don't have a problem. It's sort of like we've opened our own coffee shop. You
Yes.
come with your coffee, you hear us for a few minutes, but really you just meet a friend and you start chatting.
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a great thing. We love providing you guys a place to come sit.
A sense of community, Michael.
That's right.
That's what we're providing. That's
That's
so much bigger than entertainment. That's
absolutely.
so much more altruistic than, hey, dig me.
A friend of mine, I had sent her the Mars video, and we were talking, and we hadn't caught up in about 3 or 4 years. And so I was like, "Yeah, we're doing a little show on YouTube." She goes, "Wow, it must be hard to stay interesting for an hour." And I'm like, "Oh, interesting? Oh, no, 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 no! I didn't say that we were
Oh, no,
interesting.
no,
I
we're not
said that we,
interested.
I
No,
said we
no,
do
no.
a show for an hour."
Let's not mislead the people.
Right,
We have no pretense of even trying to be interesting. We're just saying hello.
right. We're just talking and yapping because if we weren't doing this, we'd be talking and yapping to our better halves.
If
Who probably,
interesting happens along the way, I think that's great. I think that.
I think our better halves probably love this show because it's 1 hour less that we're bothering them during the day.
Well, Allison works on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays these days, so
Gotcha. So
she
for her, it didn't matter.
she really doesn't care. No,
Yeah, I just figured it's
I mean
one less hour. To,
she's not going to watch either, but she doesn't.
right.
Now, when she was working home on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, it was an actual inconvenience to her because she used to have to do her conference calls. She has a real job and stuff, so she
Right.
was doing conference calls in the back of the house or when the weather was a little cooler out in the patio. So
That's funny.
it
She
worked
must have
out.
been like, really? Do you have to do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday? Does that really have to be the days that you do? We can't negotiate here and figure something else out.
Yeah, we worked it out.
Yeah, obviously that's kind of cute. So, how are uh, how are things going? Like, other than that, like, what's going on in your life right now? You and
Well,
I
I'm
never
still,
really talk after the show either.
yeah.
It's like we talk on the show, and then we might, send a few
We
texts
talk a
back.
little while after, and we do talk a little bit pre and
Yeah,
post. I think it's
no, we
nice.
do, but I'm.
It's convivial.
It's convivial. That's the word of the day, people. Convivial. Um, Look it up. No, Sandy, you should not be talking to us. We're supposed to be
No,
busy
we
talking to
all
each
talk to
other.
each other.
Yeah,
Talk amongst ourselves. We're
talk
having
amongst
fun.
yourself.
Really, what mainly is the thing that this voice teacher has gotten me singing. And it's been really wonderfully. I've had some great teachers. Katie Agresta in New York, who I went to in the '80s, and I've gone to ever since. And I went to when I first got to Dystonia, but she hadn't specifically worked with Dystonia. Debbie Davis's mom, Barbara, is a wonderful voice teacher and a trained opera singer. And I went to her for months, and it was a big help. But there were still just things that existed that she hadn't dealt with yet, people with dystonia. And this guy happened to have had dealt with people with dystonia. And so for him, it wasn't a giant, it wasn't a mystery. It was like, oh, you're doing this, and we have to just retrain your mind. Your brain thinks it's doing its job, but it's not. So we're going to start tricking your brain. And we found ways to trick my brain. And when my brain relaxes and goes, oh, it's not as hard as we're making it, guys. Let's all relax. Then the whole thing works again. But it is exactly what Craig Klein's been telling me all along. It's called neuroplasticity. It's retraining the neurons in your brain and then the muscle memory that goes with it. So very exciting stuff.
It is fun
But
stuff.
but it's wonderful to look forward to singing again and to actually have to stop singing because I understand that I'm getting tired. That's a great feeling. I mean, I
Yeah,
missed it. I forgot how much I missed it.
I had, it's funny. You started talking. I had thought of something, then you started talking, and I was so engrossed in what you were saying. It went away. It was gone, just that quick.
My mother
Just
would
that.
say it must have been a lie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure it was a lie. I have no doubt. It was. And as I get older, once it's gone, it's poof. It's gone. It's like, do you have access to it? No, not anymore. It was there, but now it's gone.
It's only going to get worse, Michael.
Our bricks almost match. I've never
I
noticed
know.
that.
We did a really good job of lining up today, except for the light thing, which I've yet to figure out. I wind up foggy or I wind up in the dark or, I'm going to wind up getting one of those things that make you look like a movie star.
You already look like a movie star. You're Detective Dillard, man. Come on.
Yeah, I'm sort of starting, he's losing his luster.
You
I
think?
think I think that maybe Bacala had me blackballed because I know CBS was talking spinoff for a while, but my natural heat might have been too much for him altogether.
You know, even when I get near you, I like it cold. So
And
even
it's
when
too
I'm
bad
here,
because I would have had him on as a guest star. You know.
yeah, at least for you can give him 5 minutes, a line, at least a line, just a line or
Oh, we've had
two.
him on for like a whole case where we call him back into action. Oh,
Oh yeah, I
let's
see,
get you
like a
back on the.
recurring guest star.
We need your expertise. You saying? I would have made him big.
Yeah.
I'm a generous guy like that, Michael. Really.
Uh-oh. Shmoo's starting to tell you. She says you need a ring light.
Well, I'll have to get a ring light because you look like a young movie star. You look like a young
Yeah,
Gandalf.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Gandalf. There you go. I told my wife about that this morning. Oh, I remember what I was going to say now. So yesterday she was watching this thing about the '60s, and it was '60s television, and so they're kind of going through, the Dean Martin show. I got to see some of the Dean Martin show, which was cracking me up because he was just playing drunk, and I don't know if he was really drunk or playing drunk. But have you ever seen the Dean Martin variety show?
Yeah, of course. I
Yo,
was
I
a
see.
regular watcher.
I never. Well, I wasn't. You're a little older than I. I never saw it. So here I'm watching Dean Martin drunk, smoking cigarettes on television. Just
Yeah, he was drinking apple juice.
so he was here. It was all an act, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
He was
yeah,
definitely playing drunk. It was hilarious,
yeah.
and like put it on for the whole
People
show.
love
Just yeah, I loved it. I didn't even see much of it. It was cracking me up. And and then the Smothers Brothers, the actual Smothers Brothers show, I didn't realize was so because I love the
political.
Smothers. Yeah, I loved the Smothers Brothers when I was young.
They
And
rode the edge as hard as the networks would let them, and they got canceled because they rode the edge so hard. They
yeah,
were great. Brothers were important to television and to pop culture.
they certainly were. And they
They
they played
are
the
as important to pop culture as the Smothered Brothers, Alex and I, are not. We are each other's yin and yang.
yeah. Well, they were doing every time. Well, this particular song was CBS apparently had sanctioned them for something, and so they had a song about it, and they just played the song about CBS on the air, and about the
They were great.
censorship, and
They were
yeah,
great.
they were very very funny. And then there was a thing with George Harrison on. There was a clip. So I mean, I'm seeing clips, right, because it's part of a bigger show. But
So when you and I were in the pre-show, there was a video of your band. Is that going to be played at the end of the show?
yeah, at the end of the show, gearing up for
Well,
our
we're close. We're close to the end, so let's talk a bit about the what you got going here.
yeah. So we during the beginning of the pandemic. We had been playing some gigs last year, and God, is it last year? I don't even know. Anyway, when I got to town, I put together a band without Skeet, something different. We play some beaten path songs, but we have fun playing some covers I enjoy and things like that. And really, just they're just great guys. So different, such a different vibe than what Beaten Path was, and but the same at the same time. It's weird, but anyway, long story short, we started doing these YouTube videos because what else did we have to do? So
Right.
I would sit here and I would record myself singing the songs. I'd send it to everybody, and everybody would just play it through one time. So it was kind of live-ish because we didn't really. It wasn't like a studio thing. Nobody really worried. We just played, and they came out
Right.
really nice. And they videotaped themselves while they were playing. So it was. We tried to treat it like a performance, you know.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so long story short, we did a series of. I wound up doing 6 songs with them, and then I did like 3 or 4 songs with Beaten Path. Skeet never has time anymore. He's got kids, so it's funny. He was always the holdout, and so eventually we gave up on doing any more Beaten Path songs because at first everybody gives me grief. Oh yeah, you can make YouTube videos for your new band, but what about us? Rah 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 rah. So I try to do this, and it literally took us 2 months to get Skeet on the first song, and he wound up doing it. I think at that time we had a backlog of like 4 or 5 songs, and I think we only would put out 3 because we never could get Skeet on the other songs. He's got young babies. He's busy, but it is funny that he was whining before that. Yeah, dude, his new band.
I'm stunned by that news,
Right, right. That he just didn't have time, and
and
so
that he would be
eventually,
complaining. I've never heard Ski complain about anything.
yeah, never, right, and
It's weird to hear you say that.
and then Eddie would get too excited about it, and all of a sudden it was always "Oh, slow down. All we're doing is let's keep it simple. My goodness, he'd come back with all kinds of crazy stuff. So it was always it just became where, I just did him with the almost so because we were so chill. That's what I love about these new guys. Nobody cares. It's
When
so
you
New
get older,
Orleans,
still friends are really cool when you're older.
right? And these guys are so chill. They were like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'll play on it. Yeah. If
Yeah.
I get a minute, yeah. Oh, you don't have any
Yeah.
more songs? Ah, whatever.
Yeah.
It's whatever. Mike, it's on you.
Yeah,
So,
I like it. I
yeah, I
like
like
it.
it too. And you've actually seen those guys because I was playing with them. You came to the Crossroads thing, and I love the energy of a girl drummer too. It's a different energy than having a
Yeah, I played with
obnoxious.
Linda Bowley. She was awesome. Yeah,
Isn't
it's
it
great.
different? It's just it's like they have a different vibe, and
Dude, I had for a time, I had, my band Minimum Rage. It was Linda Bowley on drums, Sonia Tetlow on electric guitar, and Mary LeSang on bass. It was the
right,
rockinest band I ever had, man.
right.
We,
They
we
just
kicked
have a.
that.
I
We
know
kicked.
some of these girls are just ridiculous, right? I mean, wow. And
Oh,
once
yeah.
again, they play rock and roll from a different place, right? It just comes from a different place to me.
Well, I was walking on stage with the girls, and it was all, it was Mary and Linda, and I think Jamie Lynn Vessels was in the band at the time, and Sonia, and the band that was we were coming off stage at French Quarter Fest as a band was going on, and the band that was going on was all guys and one girl. And the girl stopped me. She goes, "Why do you play in a band with all girls?" And I said, "Because girls like playing. Sometimes men just want to win." And she looked at her band and she went, "That's right. Men just want to win." And she walked on stage with a grimace. But it's kind of true, man. Sometimes it's like, who's the best or whatever.
Right.
Whereas when I played with them, when I played with Mary and Sonia and Linda, I felt truly supported, and we rocked. We rocked incredibly. It was a great band. I
Yeah.
missed it. Sonia now has a master's degree, and it works for the CDC, in, master's in psychology, and Mary has a master's and is a social worker. So neither of them have the same time for music anymore, and Linda has her degree as well. And so they've all joined the real world, and here I am still
And here you
banging
go,
around.
still banging around, but you know what? The real world's for this world that we're in is not for the faint of heart.
Not for the faint of heart.
Not even a little bit. I want to say one more thing about the song that we're gonna play here. This particular one is a cover by Jason Isbell, and Jason Isbell does a much better version of his own song than I could ever do of his song. But I do love this song, and I had heard it on. There's a show called Billions, and they had played it at some emotional. It hits this point of the song of the show where everybody's like in a bad place. It's between at the end of the B part of the movie or whatever. At the end of the second act where everybody suddenly has to face something and they play this song, and it's just I just love this song, and it definitely makes me feel like you're at the end of Act Two. So I felt like
All right.
let's do the end of Act
Let's
Two song.
let's let it roll.
And then Wednesday we got Alex, right?
Alex McMurray will be our guest Wednesday morning.
So I will play this on the way out, and we'll see you guys Wednesday with Alex McMurray. And thanks for tuning in again. Wait, what did she say? If you and men want to do the song, and the women want to do for the song. What do you think about that?
That's an interesting way to put it too.
Right. She said you said it. So once again, it's something that you did. You didn't even know.
Mikey, I'm kind of a genius.
Well, everyone who's tuning in obviously knows that. So I hope you guys enjoy the tune, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday.
Well, I've got green Texarkana